Dinner for shoes, please. Hello, and welcome to a very, very exciting episode of Dinner for Shoes. I had Blair Imani on the podcast. So I just want to take a second, step back. I created, I'm still actually in the process of creating some Dinner for Shoes dream guest reels. Basically, this is just a compilation of like I think there were 5 people on the list that I really admire from a fashion perspective, but also even more than that from like an activism perspective oftentimes. And I've been like, just putting up these reels, like wishful thinking. I hope they see it. I hope they decide they want to come on. As soon as I put up Blair's was my first one because she was at the top of the list. Blair commented on the reel and was like, when do you want to record? So I want to take a second just to remind everyone, because this podcast is obviously all about being real. We're always real here. I prioritize being real in my life. And obviously, we're real, right? We got the cats in here in real life. Kit is loafing over here. We love being real. So I want to take a second just to say that you should always believe in yourself, which like sounds super corny, but there are definitely days, and if you listen to episode 50 of the Dinner for Shoes podcast, we talk about just like the days we're feeling down about our work and our progress. The fact is that we have made so much progress. Incredible brands want to work with us. And Blair wanting to be on the podcast really made me recognize that Megan and I are doing good work on this podcast and we have so much fun with it. And I felt proud of myself. And so I just want to acknowledge that. I had a great conversation with Blair. I'm so excited for you to listen to it. I'm going to give Blair a little proper intro and talk about what makes her so great. If you didn't know, just to run it by you really quick. She is the host of Smarter in Seconds, which like if you are on social media, you have probably seen her viral reels. She's an activist. She is an educator. She is an author. She is so inspiring, so colorful and fashion forward. And of course, she thinks about the ways in which fashion influences what she's doing and how she's teaching her followers, but also the importance of like shopping sustainably and shopping brands that, do value activism the same way that she does. So on that note, we're going to do the outfit behind the shoes. Then I'll give Blair a more proper intro and you'll be able to listen to our conversation, okay? Of course, we're going to try Blair's favorite food. I'm very excited. It's tamales, so I'll talk a little bit about that and where we got the tamales from. And I'm also going to talk about some brands that are like, this is a good way to describe them, some fashion brands that wear their activism and their advocacy for minorities and for organizations that need funding on their sleeve. So we're going to talk about that as well, some of my favorites and some well-known ones that you probably have heard of but didn't even know what they are doing behind the scenes. So yeah, let's talk about the outfit behind the shoes. I tried to prioritize brands that give back and that matter today. I'll start with what's in front of us. Also, let me just acknowledge the elephant in the room because this thing literally is an elephant. Anyone who has like an emotional support water bottle, you know it. They are huge. I just want to stop and say that I'm trying to drink 2 of these a day. I've been doing a really good job during the week, at least. It's the weekend. So sometimes like I fall off if like I'm going out and I'm not home with it. I can't bring it with me, right? This water bottle though, by Stanley, Nick got it for me for Christmas and I am trying to drink 2. I'm trying to drink 2 because I read that staying hydrated helps with cellulite. If you have any other ideas for what helps with cellulite, just let me know and hit me up. But my dermatologist said that I am shit out of luck. So I'm like, all right, water, I can hydrate. I was like going down the list and it was like, don't do this. It was like, don't drink alcohol. And I was like, it's like, don't like exercise and diet. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to diet, but like, I like to exercise. So I do that. And then it's like, drink water. I'm like, I can do that. So let's see. I doubt that it will help the cellulite on my legs, but whatever. We're living life here. So I'm going to get that out of the scene so we can talk about the outfit behind the shoes. I want to start by acknowledging this incredible bag. It is amazing. It's like a patent. I guess this is like a snakeskin effect. There are pearls, beautiful clasp, very delicate chain, which anyone who knows me knows that I'm not the most delicate. So when I'm wearing this bag, I try super hard to take care of it and to be gentle with it. But Nick's parents got this for me at an auction. And people who like to shop sustainably and they're into vintage may forget that like auctions or estate sales are another great place to repurpose fashion. One man's trash is another man's treasure. One woman's trash, one non anyone's trash is another person's treasure, right? We know this. So I love this, and I think it's a great way to acknowledge sustainability. I want to treasure this as much as possible, and then maybe pass it down to someone else when I get too old and sick to go out the door, go outside. I will be wearing this bag until then. I really do love it. I love green, and also emerald is like really now. So this one is very beautiful. And then these shoes are by Alohas. I really like them. I think this is kind of like the shoe of the moment right now. Like it was a Mary Jane maybe last year, but now we're doing like a strappy slingback. I will always love a slingback. Most of the time it's because there's a kitten heel. And these are super comfortable. And they don't give me blisters. I was just walking around the house in them, much to Nick's dismay, which is great. It's great that he wants like, no shoes in the house, but I do normally adhere to his rule, but I have to make an exception when it comes time to shooting my outfits in the corner. So I have to wear them over there. And I'm going to put them on right now just so you can see me, and because they're comfortable. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Alohas and what they do to give back. Alohas is a brand that has a whole page on sustainability on their website. And they kind of educate at first, what is sustainability? What are animal leathers? What are faux animal leathers? And then they talk a little bit about their plant-based shoes. At Alohas, they use cactus, corn, and as of recently, apple to construct their shoes. They also use bamboo, cork, and even pineapple leaves, which is really cool. So their shoes are not only eco-friendly, but they're also cruelty-free and vegan, which I really appreciate. They're also lightweight and durable, and I can vouch for that. These shoes definitely do feel light. I've had a heavy slingback before, and I don't like the way it feels, and those are normally the ones that end up causing blisters. So they're vegan, meaning that no animals are harmed in the process. They also acknowledge the fact that overproduction is a huge issue in the fashion industry. So in order to do that and to combat waste, they produce only what is needed and what is ordered, which is very important. And they are continuing to study sustainability, which they note and mention. And for that reason, I love that too, because they are saying that they're always, trying to do better. They're always studying. Maybe like they hear that a brand is using a different material to make their shoes, they're going to look into it, So they are always trying to be better. They have a great sustainability score. I'm also wearing Aje, 2 pieces from Aje. This tank top, it's ribbed, it's really cool. It has this like really cool hardware in the center that kind of makes it ruched, makes it crop, and it's awesome. And it goes with this belt, which you could barely even see. Oh my God. And I am obsessed with it because I love gold. If you listen to this podcast, you know that I'm a gold girly and I like all the gold hardware there. Now Aje, I recently actually wore this huge pink dress. If you follow me on social, you probably saw it, to a wedding, and I got so many compliments on it. And that dress was by Aje. Really cool, ball gown, strapless, beautiful. They also value sustainability. I'm just going to read a little bit from their site. At Aje Collective, we believe that fashion can be a catalyst for positive change. This is why we've created Aje Aware. So they've created their own mission. It's an environmental, social, and governance program that represents their commitment to creating a more sustainable future. And as part of that, they make sure that all of their materials are responsibly sourced. They make sure that they have very ethical manufacturing processes, and they also make sure that their business aligns with their values. So the way that they treat the people who are working for them, for example. You can read on their website as well all about their responsible business commitments to people, to product, to the planet, and to prosperity. And they adhere to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are otherwise known as SDG, as they refer to them on their website. These kind of give them a roadmap as to the future and the way that they want to conduct their business. And they have very specific goals as part of their SDG commitments. Their focus is on 3 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So if you do look into SDG, you'll find all 17, but their focus is on reduced inequalities, responsible consumption and production, and life on land. So really cool brand to check out. They make beautiful pieces. They're all like very original, I would say. It's not like, oh, you see that and like you just saw that on Zara, you know what I mean? I'm wearing these black slacks that are from Rumored. These are the only black slacks I own. I was going to wear the skirt that goes with the top and the belt and be totally aged from head to toe. The issue is just that I also want to, well, first of all, I want it to be professional. I'm very excited that Blair is on the podcast today. And just to, reflect that, I want it to look spiffy. So I decided to go with black slacks. And on top of that, I also like to try to be seasonal. I want you to want to shop what I'm wearing and you to want to learn about the brands. And the skirt felt a little summery, but I will wear that. Maybe I'll wear it on another episode. Now, the jewelry that I'm wearing is also super important. Now, I hate it when I forget who my earrings are by, but I did forget who these pearl drop earrings are by. They're really beautiful though, and they have a chain length. They have gold to reflect the hardware on my clothes. And I'm wearing my Empower ring, which I wear when we have important conversations that I really hope encourage at least you to follow my special guest or to follow an initiative that you didn't even know existed or to maybe start shopping a brand that gives back, right? So I like to wear my Empower ring during those times. And then on top of that, I need to talk about my Mad Fine necklace. This is the Prozac necklace. I am on Prozac. I am super open about mental health. Always have been, always will be. Just decided to check if my fly was open. I didn't know if it was. What I wanted to say is that Mad Fine, which they're currently going through a bit of a rebrand, but I want to talk a little bit about them. We had Sophie Flack, who is the founder and creative director of Mad Fine, on the podcast, and she sent me this Prozac necklace as a thank you. We had a super important question. We had a super important question. We had a super important conversation about mental health and the stigmas around mental health, and her brand works to combat everything you've ever heard about people wanting to not talk about how they're in therapy and be real and talk about how they are on Wellbutrin. She has a great Wellbutrin necklace you should check out. I'm on Prozac. I'm currently trying to wean myself off of Prozac, which is a bit of a journey. I'm going very, very slow because I've had anxiety for a really long time now. But she is so wonderful that she is giving us an exclusive, the Dinner for Shoes listeners, an exclusive Mad Fine necklace discount, an exclusive discount code for 20% off the entire site, which is madfine.shop. And the code is Sarah20. We will put that in the episode description as well. If you didn't listen to the episode that Sophie was on, you will soon learn when I talk about some of my favorite brands that wear their mission on their sleeve. You will learn about all of the great qualities that Mad Fine has after my conversation with Blair. Let me talk a little bit more about Blair. For those of you who don't know Blair Imani, you might as well just go over and follow her right now. Blair Imani, as I mentioned, is an educator. She is a historian. She is the founder and the creator of Smarter in Seconds, which is a way that she uses bite-sized reels to introduce her followers to maybe new concepts or ideas that they didn't really know about or that they maybe heard about, but they don't really know the true meaning of. She does this in extremely engaging ways. Her outfits are colorful, as you're going to hear in our conversation. Sometimes she even wears fashion to reflect the topic that she's talking about, which is of course why I wanted to reach out to her. She does this in order to obviously be engaging, but also to make a statement about whatever it is that she is talking about. Blair's going to talk to us about how she decides what she wants to cover in Smarter in Seconds. But even if you don't have social media, Blair is also an author. She has written multiple best-selling books, including Read This to Get Smarter, which is a way that she challenges readers to think critically about race, gender, intersectionality, and disability, and so much more. She is really an incredible human, and I am so glad that I had the pleasure of getting to talk to her and learn from her, because honestly, I really did learn from her during this conversation. I really did learn the way her brain works, and she is a powerhouse. She thinks so quickly, and the way that she works super hard to spread crucial information out there to her followers, it literally gives me the chills. So go ahead and listen to my interview with Blair Imani. Blair, you are known for Smarter in Seconds, which is a very fun, educational, and visual way of teaching people about very important lessons. What made you decide to go with this method of teaching? And when you first envisioned it, did you end up carrying it out the way that you thought of it at first?
Well, so Smarter in Seconds was such an interesting process because I didn't really intend to have this format to begin with. Basically, I had gone viral in June 2020 when there was that racial uprising when people were like, hey, racism is bad. And I was like, no shit, Sherlock, let's get it together. And so my approach to education, I think, has varied over the years. But even before I went viral on Instagram, my job used to be to take white papers, research papers, like white paper studies, and turn them into like something that the public could understand. So whether that was around Zika virus when I worked at Planned Parenthood, or fair housing when I worked with the Greater New Orleans Fair Housing Action Project, and so or Fair Housing Coalition rather. And so it's always ebbed and flowed. And then when I went viral, I got connected with an agency, which I'm still with, which is DBA, and they had us, have this talk about what was coming up next, and it was Instagram Reels. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't want to miss this train again. Like I kind of missed the TikTok wave. I definitely missed Vine, RIP Vine. But I definitely want to be on this wave for video. And I was like, what am I going to do? Because at the time, like TikTok dances were so popular. People were doing like, get ready with me wasn't even a thing yet. And people were doing these videos about like their hair, their makeup. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not really like a hair and makeup girl. Like I'm definitely more so now over these 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, well, I can talk fast and I can teach people about things. So I'll just do that. And I think that's like a good lesson, because it's like, so many people try to fit into a box, and I was 100% trying to fit into a box, but like in my own terms. And I got interviewed by the New York Times. I was like one of those like the boss columns that they do, and it just kind of took off immediately. And then now, flash forward to today, 4 years later, most of my income comes from making Smarter in Seconds videos or PSA videos or just educating people online. But it's really kind of like, I've always been a fun fact girl. I remember our daily planners in middle school and high school. They'd always have these little fun facts. I lived for those. Yes. Like, today's fun fact is. And so I've really just continued to be myself, and now I just do that online.
I loved those planners. And I think that just speaks to how, like, if you look within and you kind of think about what are the things I'm good at? What are the things that like my family always tells me, like, hey, you're so funny with that. Like, you're like our girl for that. Then you kind of like make your shtick like from that. And that's kind of what you did there. And it's really incredible. And you definitely are unique in that way. Now, tell us how you go about, and maybe this has changed for you over time, but how you go about like deciding what your next reel is going to be on, what your next Smarter in Seconds topic is going to be, and what sort of research goes into it before you actually get going and making it.
Well, I have to shout out my creative manager, Kat Wheeler, who's like my brainstorm partner, thought partner, all those things. Sometimes it's just us sitting across from each other, talking it out. What I try to do is have a schedule and a calendar, so that way I have like some semblance of an understanding. If you look at my Instagram, you can see that I'm a little anal retentive when it comes to the grid. So when they updated the grid, I almost stopped breathing. I was like, okay, wait, we're in there. I feel like the updates they made, like they thought of me. They're like, okay, a lot of her family members' homes just burnt down. We can't have this grid thrown, because I would have been in shambles. But we're good. We're there. And so when it comes to that, I'm always looking at schedules. I'm always looking at timing. So for example, the day of the election, I kind of didn't have anything planned because I was working with the Creators for Kamala. And so I was so focused on that. I didn't have anything planned to go up on election day itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd done all these like voting PSAs. I was like, okay, well, people are voting. What do I do? And I just thought like, what would be helpful in this moment? And so I made like a little, just kind of like quick video about doom scrolling, because I thought that could be really helpful. Because I know like every election day I'm doom scrolling on Google, just like hitting that refresh button, or on the New York Times.
Yeah.
Is it blue? Is it turning blue? You know, and it didn't. And so, going flash forward to the inauguration day, I thought what could be helpful. And so there was so much uncertainty that I think we're all facing right now. And so it's like, how do you deal with uncertainty? And then I brought in my friend Michael Threets, an amazing librarian and literacy ambassador, to be in that video as well. Kind of to tee up we're having a podcast coming out soon called Thoughts About Feeling. So that'll be out in April, which is really exciting.
Oh, love that.
But I just kind of like, I try to mix up like, okay, what is the current moment? How can we be helpful? How can we move forward? Sometimes I make something because I have time to make it and I know it'll be topical later. So like, I think in August, I made a video about DEI and I just reposted it recently and it like took off because again, it's a hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always just trying to like meet the moment, see the different things, and then backing up the claims, because, if there's one thing I am, it's a researcher, it's an educator. And if I'm telling you something like race was made up and you've never heard that before, instead of having a bunch of people in my comment section being like, prove it, I'll just be like, and here's the source on screen. Yeah. And so research is a huge part of it too, because it helps cut down on the comments, but I think it also raises the standard of what education looks like online. Because if I create this, with other content creators like Jill Burvell, like Khalil Green, who create the standard of, okay, I'm telling you a claim and here's the supporting evidence, then I think it helps audiences understand how important that is too.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well in a bit. But something that's, I think everyone, we should start by saying is that you're very vocal about the intersections of your identity as a Black, queer, Muslim woman. And you are an advocate across intersectionality. And that's very much a part of, these reels that you create that are teaching people. What do you think is something that's misunderstood about allyship that you continue to try to correct when you are educating?
There's just so many different things. I think that's my primary video format right now. Like I'm making a video for Black History Month. I'm not sure when this is going up, but for Black History Month, it's like, do you know how to celebrate Black History Month without making a racist mistake? Mm-hmm. Do you? Let's go over it just in case, just things like that are like 3 things to stop saying so that you don't sound racist. Or like during Halloween, how can you Halloween respectfully? You don't have to Halloween respectfully, but don't get mad at me when you get called out November 1st. And so it's just all these different things. I think one thing that I'm constantly having to reiterate throughout all those videos is like, yeah, I might tell you this is problematic or this isn't problematic. But the one thing is to just be mindful and to think like, I'm not trying to give people the answers. I'm trying to show them how to think, how to be more thoughtful about other people's lived experiences, and then also explain to them why those things matter. Even in my video on DEI, like I could just leave it at, hey, DEI is good. Here's all the benefits of DEI. But instead, I want to give people the context of like, look, we wouldn't have to have DEI if we didn't have a systemic structure called the patriarchy and we didn't have white supremacy. Mm-hmm. Or even in my video on Black History Month, like, hey, when you say things like, why don't we have a White History Month? It sounds racist, and here's why, and giving people the understanding. So I think, to summarize, like allyship is a constant growing process because there will be so many different ways that we can show up and better respect one another, and learning how to do that is always going to change. But even being able to say things like, I don't know what to say right now, or that might have been outdated, just to catch yourself and to remind people that like, yes, it's high stakes because it matters, but it's also something you can do. I'm always trying to empower people that you can do it. I'm starting to do more pep talks because a lot of us are made to feel like we can't do it. I'll just never get it right. And then you're stuck. And that's a bad place to be.
Yep. Or if you make one mistake, then, you don't want to go there anymore because I made a mistake. Exactly. Well, something else that I want to talk about is just because we are a fashion podcast and you maybe weren't so interested in like you said, like all the beauty stuff and the fashion stuff in the beginning, but now you are. And your style is a huge part of your reels. And I think that's a great thing. Everyone's still interested in what you're saying. You're still teaching very valuable lessons, but you match and you make it look fun and cool and really aesthetically pleasing. So when you think about fashion, when you're about to make a reel, how far in advance are you planning those looks? And maybe like what goes into planning them? Do you have fun with it?
So there's so many. Okay, so my mom used to be a fashion designer. She used to design for Bullocks and for Neiman Marcus.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's great.
The stuff that she used to design would like end up on like the covers of like R&B, like really like, shoulder pads. It was like the 80s. And so I always grew up with, it's wrong to judge a book by its cover, but we live in a society and how you dress is going to dictate in many cases how people treat you. And that's very true, unfortunately, for social media. And so my thing is like, okay, I'm doing a PSA about nuclear weapons. I'm going to do it in a little 1950s housewife look because some people will just be watching for the look and other people will be watching for the information. Either way, you're watching it. And sometimes people watch it over to like see the looks. And I have fun with it and it helps me get into like character and have fun. Like right now, I'm wearing this little army green situation because I'm about to do a PSA about defense spending and how like defense contractors' budget is more than the entire Department of Education's budget. And so, there's so many things like DOGE and the Department of Government Efficiency. I'm like, okay, Elon Musk, if you really want to cut down on government spending, here's some places you can start like the nuclear weapons program that makes us less safe. But I'm doing it in like this kind of military look. So that way there might be somebody watching it being like, oh, military. Wait, what? Yeah. The woke mind virus? Oh no. And then I got him. So as far as outfits, I try to make it topical. So if I'm doing a video, I'm doing a video with the Red Cross soon. I'm wearing red for that. I'll try to match it to different like colors of awareness. Sometimes we'll look up like, what's the color of awareness for this? And that's good because it kind of communicates to people, say it's for some, illness. People who have that illness, who are in that advocacy community can look at the video and be like, oh, well, she's in the know. Yeah. And then I'll also collaborate with people who have that lived experience if it's not something that I have myself, because I think it's important to teach with people and not speak for people, but to speak with people and to fight with people instead of feeling like you have to save everyone. And so it definitely goes into it. A little hack though, when I'm doing my videos, I'm filming like 3, 4, 5 a day on filming days, because not every day is a filming day. Some days are for posting, some days are for filming. Recently it's been for both because we're just trying to tread water. And I'll just have the same makeup look, but it looks different depending on what earrings you put with it or what lipstick you put with it. But usually my eyes and my cheeks are the same. So people who are paying attention very hard, you can tell on my manicure and my face what day I filmed it on, and then also sometimes my braids. But I just have a really good time with it because it keeps it exciting. I have these clothes to wear, and then also being a hijabi, there's so many opportunities to kind of like mix and match. One thing that I did though, I have ADHD. I like to hyper focus, and sometimes that includes fashion. So my favorite go-tos are in body clothing. These are just these onesie, like single, like unitard outfits. I love them. You can put clothes on top of them. You can put like a shirt over it. Even when I went to court and sued the police, I just put a blazer over it with some loafers. So that's like one of my verticals for clothing.
Yeah.
The other one is Style Mati, which is this amazing Indian designer out of Mumbai, Fatima, who's just so incredible. I love all of her clothes. Basically, how that happened was in 2020, I was trying to find a caftan, and I kept finding like Anthropology or Free People was making caftans, and I was like, well, why didn't I like actually just go to where are the suppliers? And in 2020, as we know, there were so many manufacturers who completely lost their entire business. And so I was like, well, let's go to the source. Let's look at somebody who's actually hiring women and has safe conditions for working. And so I went straight to Mati, and I've just been buying ever since. Recently, I had, I think, like 7 different sets made of different like colored shirts and little pants. And so I have that in every color. It's like, I call it my like yacht / like lacrosse mom outfit. I love them. I put my sweaters over it. So I have 7 of those. And then the other one is Oddbird Clothing, which is an amazing woman-owned business out here in Los Angeles, in Eagle Rock. And it's run by this amazing woman named Jaren and her sisters, and it's like Turkish linen. And so I have all the colors of those too, just like the Carta set, and it's like Japanese inspired tailoring. I love it. So those are my 3, and I just kind of like cycle through. So if I'm wearing something else like this today, it's a special occasion and I'm filming a special video. But I'm usually just cycling through those, and it makes it so easy to pack because it just like, I'm about to go film these podcast episodes. So I'm just going to pack the Mati looks with matching sweaters, and I'm going to wear that. And I know the hijabs that match with them. So it makes it really easy. It's like a uniform. And I get really excited about it because I love that it all matches.
I wish that I could see your closet. And I also think it's like important to note that people who don't really love fashion as much as maybe like we do might think of it as sort of like superficial. But when you like notice those references that you're making between your outfits and the topics that you're talking about, and like the complexities of the topics you're talking about, it becomes a little bit more important and meaningful. Do you find that I'm sure you like read some of your comments, that your followers are kind of catching your references that you're making with like fashion or jewelry and nails? And like, what have been some of your favorite comments, I guess, that you've noticed?
I feel like I was really empowered to do more of this when I filmed a piece for this queer history show called The Book of Queer, with Dr. Eric Servini. And I was doing a piece from Ma Rainey and then also for Josephine Baker, 2 incredible Black queer women from our history. Josephine Baker, very much known for her like finger waves and all that. And we had filmed the Ma Rainey piece first, and I wore like a big suit. She used to wear suits like that. I wore an 80s suit, but you know, it was an homage to those who know now. And I had to supply my own wardrobe, and it was in the middle of the pandemic, so we did our best. And then the second outfit I did was very Josephine Baker, and that was fun because the director is like, "Where are you guys? We need to get filming." And then they come around the corner and see me and the hairstylist, whose name escapes me, doing my finger waves like Josephine Baker. And I was like, "Oh, I see Black girl magic is happening. We'll see you whenever you're done." And so it was like, how can we pay homage to these figures and embody them while also doing the work of education and being the video? So I was like, okay, well, if we can do this for TV, we can do this for video as well. I think that like when I started filming, my acne was the worst it had ever been. And the way that I tried to feel empowered and beautiful was to like wear clothes that made me feel more comfortable, and like just to try to express myself in all these different ways and use every method of communication as a form of communication. You know, like, okay, my clothes are also communicating something. Yeah. And for those who think it's superficial, I think it's really, they should watch, what is it, Miranda Priestley's speech in the middle of Devil Wears Prada, right? Like, all these things are connected. But I also think it's really interesting because if I'm talking to somebody about women's empowerment and I'm shopping from a place like Fashion Nova or Shein or, all of these really terrible fast fashion companies, I'll see folks, when I speak about Shein and Temu, they'll say like, well, that's the only place I can shop. And I'm sensitive to that and I understand that. Simultaneously, it really troubles me when I see people who are so-called human rights folks who are willingly shopping at places who have dubious human rights records, who Fashion Nova, for example, has been sued for wage theft. And the same year that they gave $1 million donation towards racial justice. So it's like the racial justice you can do is at home. The same thing with, I've done videos about sizeism and inclusivity. And so if I'm only shopping at a place that has extra small through large, then I'm not really living my values as I'm talking about them. So I try to hold myself to that standard. At the same time, those standards have to be sustainable. I was recently, having an exchange with a sustainability content creator who was saying, oh, well, I don't really want to say what company she shopped at, but she's basically like, sometimes I do hauls at this company because I need to take a break from the sustainability world. And I'm like, they have a terrible human rights record. Like, you have to live it all the time, So I try to shop vintage. I try to be, mindful, but it's also like we're all works in progress. But I think that it's so funny whenever I do something like, I'll go all out with like my eye look or like with my outfits. And then people in the comments be like, Blair, I love what you're talking about. This is a complete aside and I don't want to take away from your work, but where is that outfit from? And I'm like, girl, it's okay. It's tagged in the caption. It's fine. Because I think we can do multiple things at once. And then the fact is, to be a viable content creator, sometimes you have to, get into the lifestyle aspects of it. I'm not in a position where I can just talk about racial justice 24/7 or gender, equality. I also have to participate in social media, which a lot of it is sales. And so that means talking about skincare or Black hair care while also talking about Hairbrella and how we can care for ourselves. But trying to do that in a way where I'm not losing my value. So it's a juggling act, but it's so cool because some folks have written about it. So Dr. Kristen Peterson, she wrote an article called Selling to Smarties.
Okay.
And it was basically using my work, basically from when I started my job to 2 years in, as like a peer-reviewed study on what it looks like to be a social justice content creator. And I was like, well, that's something. So I'm trying to I'm creating the industry or being part of the industry while I'm in it. It's definitely embarrassing when somebody writes an article about your first few years of any job, but I think it was a critical yet fair assessment. But it's trying to combine like the principles of social justice while also selling people stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great that you're being truthful and honest about that because that's true. You are a content creator and that's definitely a part of the business. Not that it takes away from, the education that you're actually putting out there because it definitely doesn't. But just a little bit of a shift here. Misinformation is often spread and you even kind of referenced that in the answer to the last question. How do you protect your mental health? Because I know that like what you do is literally, you may not be doom scrolling one day when you're creating something, you're prepping for a reel or researching, you're doing a lot of important research. But then when you sign on to social media and you go to post it, you could post something that's great. And then you're scrolling and you see misinformation someone else posted. How do you protect yourself from that and kind of keep yourself like cleansed, I guess, at the end of the day?
I try to focus on what I can control and what I can't control. And for reference, I've been on social media for 10 years. And when I started being on social media, I would say I've been like pseudo famous on social media for like 7 or 8 of those years. And I have anxiety disorder and I have a panic disorder. I haven't had a panic attack in a very long time. I think I had one in the midst of all these fires, which is understandable.
Yes.
But definitely when I was, when I got my first haters, oh girl, okay. I would get hives all the way up to my neck. They couldn't one on the face. When I would see people talking shit or like sending hate or messages. And it literally at one point, it was so bad that I checked myself in for like inpatient care because I didn't feel safe within my own mind and body. So I think as horrible as that was and as far as it took me to the brink, I was grateful for those experiences. I don't know about grateful, not totally grateful for that. I used those experiences nonetheless to better equip myself in the current era of my social media, which is way better. Like I don't feel like I have an audience that's ready to attack me all the time. I know that a lot of content creators can't say that. I think that my audience is really lovely. When I see folks in person, I feel really safe. And that's not how I've always felt on social media. So I feel like it's been a really wonderful community, and that's taken a lot of work. Like I had a pen pal program at one point. Now it's so lovely when we see people in the comments who are like kind of like self-correcting, even if it's like misinformation about something I've done or me. But when I see other content creators posting stuff, sometimes I'll just send them a message. One of the jobs I used to have was in crisis communications and public relations. And that's just kind of like uncanceling people or trying to get them to not accidentally get themselves into a cancelable situation.
Yeah.
And so recently I saw a content creator who was trying, I think, her best to post information about ICE. And in the midst of doing that, spread some like bad advice about ICE. Like, you know, I'm not even going to say what the suggestion was because it was bad, but you could tell someone to show up for communities who are impacted by these horrible immigration policies, but maybe didn't know the best way. And so I just sent like a little message. Like I just put like a little like, oh, and by the way, because I'm not trying to like make it look like I'm calling people out.
Right.
And then I'll send another message that's just like, hey, bestie, perhaps not. That happens often. I'll see, and sometimes I think it's because amazing TikTok creators and content creators, many folks I'm friends with, they've had a following because they're genuine, because they're reacting in real time. But sometimes those real-time reactions can cause people to be in a frenzy. So sometimes I'll just make a pep talk and I'll like, you know, for example, when people were saying blue bracelets, that was what, the friendship bracelet.
Yes.
So I was just like, hey, let's talk about this. Because I'm not people feel mad for not knowing or for the misinformation, but now we can teach people or like use the trend in my favor. And then like recently I did a video that was just like, hey, so a lot of you are so upset that your faves were following JD Vance when you woke up this morning. I need you to redirect that anger, right? Because we can't be mad that Instagram is for following people. We don't know what happened with that, and that's definitely giving state media creepy.
Right.
Simultaneously, families are being separated under these executive orders. Let's redirect and try to do it way. And then the whole comment section will be like, oh, thanks, I didn't think about it that way. I think the biggest benefit to my mental health is not assuming everybody's out here being an ass or being stupid. Just people don't know. People are just reacting in real time, trying to do their best. And if I can react to it that way, it just makes me feel better, because it's like there's Harlan's razor, I think, is like never attribute to malice what you can attribute to stupidity. I don't really think stupidity is real. Like I don't think stupid questions are real, but I think it's a reminder that if you're constantly being mad at people for not knowing stuff instead of providing them information, which is something that's just in your control, especially, you know, for me, I have a platform, then you're going to get angry more often. And for me, I think angry is an important emotion, but it can't be my only emotion. I like to replace that with hopefulness. Like, okay, maybe people just don't know. And maybe I can tell them, and then they'll be like, oh, I didn't know. And I feel like 10 times out of 10, that's what I'm doing on my social media.
Yeah.
Is people being, oh, I had no idea. That's how it got started. People are like, racism is real bad. No clue. And I'm like, well, buckle up.
Well, first of all, I think I can relate to you when it comes to anxiety. I also have anxiety, and I haven't had a panic attack in a really long time, but you never know when it's going to happen. You could be doing real great, and then it comes up. So I feel you on that.
That's why it's an attack. It's just boom, you know?
Yes, literally. But I also think that it's great that instead of maybe just commenting or sending a message to someone who you think potentially spread some misinformation or is saying something that could be dangerous, you create a new reel and you kind of present the information that way, just doing what you do best, and like you shift your energy and you refocus. And I think that is super empowering. Some of the topics that you talk about often are very like hot button topics right now, like fat phobia, ableism, anti-LGBTQ plus laws that are obviously, being talked about and addressed over and over again. What is an issue right now that you think is not being talked about enough? Maybe it's something you're planning a reel on, or something that you saw even today and you made a mental note.
There are so many things that I think are under discussed or are discussed incorrectly that I just mind my business about. And there's for many reasons. Like I think one thing that I think is completely the wrong, like that's getting really jumbled, is the amount of people who are giving this hate and vitriol to Black like entrepreneurs and business owners who are selling at Target. I've seen people more mad at those folks than actual Target. I'm not going to make a video in regards to that because, quite frankly, there's a lot of other things I'm covering. But that's one thing where I'm like, I feel like I can make a great video about this, but not my lane, not my day, you know? And I just think there's a lot of times where I see stuff like that, where I'm just like, oh, I feel like I have something that could really be beneficial here, but I'm not willing to invite that blowback into my life. And I think that's another way I maintain my mental health and my peace. Videos that I've tried to make that I have coming up is kind of like just explaining like what is ICE, because I think that there's a huge separation for a lot of folks. This is where the allyship side comes in. Is like there are people whose families are immigrants, or who, like, you know, recent family members, like parents, grandparents themselves, who have had to live under the threat of surveillance by ICE, you know, all these different horrible things. And I think there's another big population of people who are like, this is bad. I know why it's bad, because it's bad to separate people, but that's kind of where my understanding ends. And I think that's the folks who could be moved, right? It's that movable middle, the people who are like, yes, deportations, woo. And the people who are like, absolutely no, this is affecting my life directly. And then people in the middle who are just like, I don't agree with this, but I don't understand why completely, and I would like to know more. So that's who I'm focused on. So I'll be making a video, and I had a conversation with a lawyer earlier today to make sure that I don't get sued for making the video. So the video is literally going to start with, I had to talk to a lawyer to make this video. Nothing in this video is legal advice. So here's what you should do in the case of ICE. Like, just explaining, like, what is ICE? How do they work? What authority do they have? What can you do if you see somebody getting detained? Because I think that was really helpful, particularly around police brutality, to let white folks or folks who might be less likely to be dealing with the police. Here's what you can do if you see a Black man getting profiled in Brooklyn. You can stop, you can record the police. Like, those things are really helpful. Sometimes you can just be a compassionate presence that is equipped. And I think that's much more beneficial than having people posting things that are inaccurate and feeling like nothing is in their control. And then you start to see people spreading less misinformation. The same thing with the fires. As soon as it started to be like, hey, here's ways you can actually show up and support. Here's what you should donate and what you shouldn't donate. Then people act accordingly, but sometimes they just don't have the information. And so you could sit there and get mad. And I think it's really valid, especially if you're directly impacted by something, to get mad about something, to be angry. But if I'm a step removed from it, can I tap into that anger, try to work with communities who are more directly impacted and create that with them, because that way it's not savory. And so that's what I'm going to be focused in, and just really looking at, like, there's clearly a lot of energy. Not all the energy is directed, and how can we direct that energy better, and work with people who have that experience the most. So that's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm going to be doing for the next 4 years, quite frankly.
Yeah, seriously. Another topic that we are obviously talking about a lot right now, gender inclusivity, is being attacked. How are you helping educate your followers when it comes to that topic? And maybe do you have anything planned in that area?
I'm definitely wanting to, like, sit down with folks. It's a balance when it comes to, so for example, educating folks about, like, systemic transphobia that's happening. It can be really, I think, problematic for me to reach out, because I usually work with an amazing woman named El Duran, who just got married. And she has an amazing, like, downloadable resource, a book all about allyship. Highly recommend that. But beyond checking in the immediate aftermath of crisis moment, of just being like, hey, are you okay? Because, for example, with my family members' homes burning down in the Eaton fire, I kind of got a little irritated with people who are being like, Blair, are you making resources? And I'm like, baby girl, right now I'm taking care of the little kids in my life instead of making something for my broader community. So I think that that's an important aspect of allyship too, is to recognize a moment where you can show up versus, or use something that has already existed versus, asking somebody who's already going through it to create more. And so I think once we get into a better place, once I feel like it's a more appropriate time, I'm reaching out to Elle to create more resources. But in June, and I think this is what was really important too, is doing this work ahead of time. So in June, we made a whole bunch of videos. We made videos on, like, how do we actually protect kids? Because saying that, that trans folks can't come and read books at school, or that drag queens can't do story time, that's not keeping any kids safe. Because what you're saying is that trans folks or drag queens, two separate concepts, although sometimes there are drag performers who are also trans. That's distracting it, saying, hey, all of these people are unsafe, which says automatically all of these people are safe. And that doesn't keep anyone safe, because it helps predators and dangerous people hide in plain sight, because the assumption is that they're safe based on their identity. And that's just not, whether or not you're going to harm a child has nothing to do with who you are and your identities, and more so whether or not you're going to harm a child. So we've done videos on that. We've done videos on just how to better respect and, like, just respect trans folks. And I think one thing that I'm going to be working on next is, I did a video kind of explaining how race is a construct. So I think we'll be talking about the construction of gender next. That's going to be chock full of citations and sources, because I already know where the comments are going to go. But just trying to, like, balance crisis moments and showing up at the same time. So I think that like with the gender equality conversation, because I've been having it for such a long time, and there are so many places it's lacking, it just feels like this has been like kind of the cornerstone of my activism. One of the first videos I produced was um, about how it wasn't ever about bathrooms when it came to trans rights. It was about power.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, when my dad was growing up, it was separated by race.
Right.
And now it's separated by gender. And
Right.
the whole narrative was like, well, you can't have, you know, scary Black people around white people because they'll be, then it's the same narrative, just as my grandma would say, same shit, different toilet.
Yep.
And so I feel like it's just kind of having to reinforce those things. And I think that's the important part of living your values, is that when crises do happen, you already have a network to tap into, but it's just kind of that matter of not trying to overburden people who are like literally being attacked, but making yourself available to fight and just to say, hey, I have your back. Hey, just checking in, and trying to be specific about the ways that you can show up. So it's going to be an ongoing conversation. I think another thing that I'm really concerned about is abortion rights in the US.
Mm-hmm.
We've already seen like resources around abortion pills are no longer allowed to be shared on social media. Or like at least one social media page got removed. And so I'm going to be tapping into more education about contraception, birth control, period care, because it's looking really dire. And I've been around the country over the past few months, seeing how dire it is for a lot of people. And it does make me really fucking sad. And seeing how Cecile Richards just died is really fucking sad. But like kind of trying to carry on that fight. So it's really hard to stay hopeful, especially around those types of things. But I have to just remember that there are people who have been in this fight before, who are still in this fight, and it's about fortifying those folks. I want to shout out Sister Song, which is an amazing reproductive rights organization, all about reproductive freedom. Whether you want to have a kid or you don't want to have a kid, they're there to support you. And so it's about pouring our resources and remembering that there are folks who are doing the work, and we can support those folks.
Yeah, and I think that it's also important just to remember that you are one of those beacons of hope. I mean, what you do is, I think your followers will feel the same. I do also want to touch on pop culture a little bit, because sometimes when we're educating, we find that pop culture, whether it's like TV shows, celebrities, celebrity beloved brands, that's an easy entry point into educating. Do you think that is harmful at all? Can it be harmful at all? Do you think that can be fleeting? And how do you kind of navigate bringing pop culture into your educational videos?
So I try to make my videos a little bit more timeless, so I don't bring pop culture in as much, because I feel like it can be divisive. But there are a lot of ways that pop culture can be a really great entry point. And I try not to be like, first of all, I think it would be hilarious for me as an online content creator who educates people through Instagram and TikTok to be like, I'm above pop culture, because there are so many people in academia who believe that they're above social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all different ways of learning. It's all different ways of communicating. I think that the reason why I don't do it as much is because I want my videos to feel a little more timeless, but there are a lot of ways that I try to connect those things. For example, talking about adult bullying, and how I framed it as adult bullying, because I think we all know what bullying looks like when we're kids, but to remind people that actually can happen in the workplace, it can happen in relationships. In relationships, sometimes it's called domestic violence, but sometimes that definition doesn't capture everything, because maybe you're not living with someone, maybe it's intimate partner violence, just a lot of different things. And I thought of that topic because of something my mom was experiencing with one of the organizations that she was with, but simultaneously, a lot of the indictments were happening with Diddy. And so it felt like a great way to talk about sexual violence in the way that we talk about it. And also to remind people that, hey, Diddy may never see what you say about him, but the people in your life who are experiencing abuse will. And so we have to be mindful about how we talk about pop culture with the people in our lives, because that could be showing someone whether you're a safe space or not. And so trying to frame it in those things and connect those two things. And it's just like, it is so connected, because there are people who are way more tapped into what's happening with WW than they are with executive orders. And so when I'm making content, I'm trying to also learn from content creators who cover stuff that's not related to politics, that's not related to education. So I can see where the trends are at and how I can adapt and how I can, try to play into those things. But I think it can be a great jumping off point, because like even just, this isn't so pop culture related, but just a trend, like when everybody was talking about girl math and boy math, I used it as an opportunity to talk about how patriarchy discourages girls from going into STEM fields. And so it was like, we heard out girl math and boy math, but did you know that we're actually taught math differently based on our gender? And then people are like, tell me more, Blair. And I'm like, let's get smarter in a second. So it's all these different tools. And I think that it's a really easy trap to get into, to think that one form of media is superior to another. but it's all popular. And so you just have to kind of figure out what works for you, what works with your communication style, and how you can make it educational.
Absolutely. I think something else that's important to talk about is how attention spans are definitely waning. And your method of teaching, it speaks to that, right? Like you're kind of coming up with this like very great solution, smarter in seconds. Literally, you're offering your followers the chance to get smarter without having to do some like deep reading, for example, for hours. But do you think that this will last? Do you think that there is room to continue to go deep on the internet? And like, what fears do you have about that just for our future?
Well, I think, the whole attention span thing, it's difficult to say. I think that the way my brain works, the faster I can learn it, the better. Sometimes I do want to do a deep dive, but it has to be like well done. Like I will watch a 6-part documentary as long as every episode is captivating at AF. So
Right.
you have to fight for my attention. And so Smarter in Seconds is definitely born of that ADHD mindset. People be like, wow, this works so great for me. I have ADHD. And I was like, baby, me too. That's why it's not fulfilling to you. And so I try to, but I think as far as like the deep dives and everything, like I see a lot of folks who get really frustrated that like, no, I want to talk about this in 15 minutes. I want to do that. And I think there are ways to get that across, but I'm trying to kind of keep where the times are. And again, like working with folks like El Duran, which she helped me. I used to have kind of like pauses between my clips. Like I would wait till like I finished a sound before the next sound started.
Mm-hmm.
But now I like learned how to on CapCut, extract audio, overlay it slightly. So that way it's just one seamless. It's like how pilots talk.
Right.
You ever hear a pilot be like, hi, and we're doing this. And that's because they have different equipment. And as soon as the sound drops off, it cuts out and you have to press the button again. So it's more efficient. But that's how the human brain's working right now. We're working like airline equipment.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like working for the best practices. And one thing I think is so beneficial for content creators is to be like, don't get competitive. Figure out what the other person is doing, learn from them, collaborate with them, and then level up. And I just think it's a great way to be in life in general. Instead of like, oh, well, I should be doing that. Let's collaborate. I think a great example of that is me and Michael Threets. We'll talk about that later. But as far as is it going to last, I think it's so important, and actually it is connected because to talking about Michael Threets, because yeah, we have social media, TikTok going away and then coming back seemed like a lot of charading.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to figure out how we can have timeless presences in culture that's outside of just social media. And so moving into the podcast realm is a great way to do that. I've written books. I'm going to be meeting with folks in a few days about writing another book. But really just trying to figure out what your mission is. So if your mission is to help people feel comfortable in their own skin, or in my case, helping people to learn things, I have to figure out more than one way to do that. It can't just be video. It can't just be these short formats. It can't just be podcasts. It can't just be books. It has to be kind of all those things. As long as I want to stay independent, because that's another thing is that I'm really committed to staying independent. I'm really committed to not having to rely on as many brand partnerships or to figure out a way that I can make my business work for me. And also be able to like afford a house eventually and have kids and be able to finance that. So whether or not it's going to last, I've kind of always operated under the idea that it's fleeting. And so I've tried to adapt myself accordingly.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, we are going to end on some kind of lighthearted questions. You've talked a lot about joy as an act of resistance. What is something that has brought you joy recently that you would like to talk about today?
So it's so twisted because, with these fires that have happened and so many of my family's homes burning down, I'm now living with my nieces and nephews are living with me. And we have a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 15-year-old, so 2 15-year-old boys, and then a 17 and 18-year-old girl and young lady. And they're hilarious. They have gone through some of the most devastating things. Like they lost all their possessions, and they've just been so chipper and upbeat and helpful. And I'm trying to try to break through that, how are you doing? Fine. Well, you don't have to be fine. If you're not fine, you can talk to me, those types of things. But my niece who's 17, she was so funny. She said 3 hilarious things after the fires, because humor can be a great medicine. The first one was, well, my college essay just wrote itself, period. The second one was, I guess I don't have to clean my room now. And the final one was, well, at least my braids are done. At least I'm going through this in braids. It was the funniest thing. She didn't even remember saying it because she was just kind of yapping.
Yeah.
But that brought me a lot of joy because it reminded me that even during the most upsetting times, you can find joy. And we try to do family outings, like going bowling, going to eat teppanyaki, and just try to make new memories. And so, yeah, it's brought me a lot of joy, even though it's definitely been stressful.
Yeah, I'm sure, but I'm glad that you found those moments of joy and were able to repeat them because they are great. Now, my last question is just, if someone made a reel about your style in Smarter in Seconds, what do you hope they would say or remember about, the little fashion and beauty references that you pepper into your reels?
I think people notice these things. I think the things that I try to indicate are so neurodiverse coded that other neurodivergent people pick up on them immediately. And even some neurotypical folks too. Like I try to match the captions to the words. One thing that I think people do not recognize when it comes to Smarter in Seconds is how much goes into the editing. There are sound effects in that thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's like little pop-ups, like the hitting the points. These different points.
Yep.
I even do this when I'm talking to people. I was talking to my nephew and I was like, you have to do this. Like I was talking about I want to join the military. It's like, well, you should probably go talk to a recruiter and we can talk. It's just but you should talk to a veteran too, so you can see what it's like after the military, give them the holistic experience. But sometimes I find myself Smarter in Seconds choreo in person. But I think that something that's just so important is that I try to collaborate with folks. I think that's the biggest thing I try to do with Smarter in Seconds. It's one of the most expensive aspects of Smarter in Seconds because everyone I collaborate with, I pay or I donate in their name.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't want, I think sometimes when people hear that I make a show called Smarter in Seconds, or I've written a book called Read This to Get Smarter, that I think I'm the smartest person ever. I really hope people understand that I'm learning as well.
I think that is a great note to end this on. And I really appreciate that you said that. And I think that also just goes to show that, if you get it wrong the first time, like there's room to learn. And I think that will be a good message to your followers and mine. So thank you so much for being on, Blair. It means so much to me. And thank you for responding to my reel. I'm so glad to have met you.
Thank you. And I want folks to know, you are what's it called? A masterclass in shooting your shot. You made a reel talking about all the people you want to your show. You tagged me. I saw that. And I was like, absolutely. And so I think putting yourself out there is so important. And you seem to do that really well. So I hope folks can take a lesson from that.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Blair. I am thirsty, so I need a little bit of my emotional support water bottle. And yeah, I really need the emotional support today because it is just mind blowing that I just got to talk to Blair Imani, honestly. And now I'm going to talk about some of my favorite social activism fashion brands. I think I have 10 here. I am going to start with talking about Mad Fine. Here's my Prozac necklace. I just want to say that I do tuck it away when it doesn't really go with my look. I personally, and I hope that other people use Mad Fine in this way, it is a reminder to not be ashamed of the fact that mental health is a real thing and it affects literally everyone. So there are often times during the day where maybe I'm anxious and just remembering that I have it on here is helpful to me. I do hope that other people feel that way and use jewelry in that way. I think it's crazy to scoff at something that's tangible's ability to help you get on with your day. I think that that's something that we should all try. Now, something about Mad Fine. So this brand was founded by Sophie Flack. It was founded and emerged in early 2022 with a commitment to social activism. Now, its debut collection is super important here. It was actually launched in response to overturning Roe v. Wade. And the collection featured jewelry pieces that were inspired by abortion pills rather than the medication you may take on a day-to-day basis. A portion of the proceeds benefited the National Network of Abortion Funds. And Sophie has gone on to work with so many other corporations, organizations that she has donated her proceeds to. So she has only continued that tactic, right, with her brand. She is continuously trying to fight for rights, for minorities, for reproductive rights. And she just shows the way that fashion can be a catalyst for positive change, which I think is very impressive. And I think it does exist. And again, people do talk, you heard me just say to Blair, some people think that fashion is superficial. It's not. And these brands just prove that even further. I also want to talk about Lingua Franca, which is probably the first brand that comes to mind when I think about social activism fashion brands, because they are really chic and really cool. You've probably seen Lingua Franca pieces without even knowing that you've seen them. If you've seen the sweatshirts that have really thin, beautiful cursive embroidery on them, you have probably seen a Lingua Franca piece. They began as a line of sustainably sourced, fair trade luxury cashmere sweaters. Like I said, they are very chic and they're high end. They are hand sewn by women in New York City. But the brand has expanded. So now they have various different embroidered pieces as part of their ready to wear collection. And they have extremely ethical production methods, and they always have a give back initiative. In fact, they actually have a give back collection section. So if you want to make sure that the pieces that you're shopping, some of the proceeds go to different charities of your choosing, you can just shop that section, which I really love. They have raised over $1 million for more than 200 charities, including donating 20% of proceeds from specific sweaters to organizations like Your Mom Cares, which focuses on children's mental wellness. So lingua franca and Mad Fine almost go hand in hand in that way. I mean, if you're wearing a lingua franca top with your Mad Fine necklace, I mean, how many times do I go in an episode? Let's just talk about Prabal Gurung. Now, Prabal Gurung is a little bit more high end, but I do want to talk about the incredible things that Prabal has done for activism on his runways through some ready to wear collections that are even a little bit more accessible. As a brand, Prabal Gurung does focus on quality craftsmanship, and they support local communities by manufacturing over 90% of collections in New York City. He has also collaborated with Toms to support different foundations. He established a nonprofit to benefit underprivileged children in Nepal. And additionally, he has been involved in initiatives supporting Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, and voter registration efforts. If you paid attention to the Met Gala like I do in 2021, you might remember his famous Met Gala dress that was part of the exhibit In America, a Lexicon of Fashion. And it said, "Who gets to be American?" with a really beautiful sash. And that dress, I think, will go down in history. And it just reflects like his dedication to social causes, to fighting for what matters. He's also vocal on his own platform, just as a designer, which I really appreciate. I love when we see the designer or the stylist behind the collection that's before us, right? So he's a great example of that. Brother Vellies, we have talked about the 15% pledge. If you don't know about what the 15% pledge is, which Aurora James founded, what it is they make sure, the 15% pledge makes sure that 15% of different retailers who sign with them stock is devoted to Black-owned businesses. So she is making sure, and 15% pledge, it launched during the pandemic, and I can't even tell you, it was so cool to see all the brands that pledged to work with her. And she is making sure that all these Black-owned businesses are stocked on shelves, which is huge. But on top of that, her brand, Brother Vellies, they have sustainable practices as part of their production method. They are also making sure that there are artisanal jobs worldwide in the creation of their shoes. But on top of that, they donate 1% of every single purchase to a nonprofit of the customer's choice, which I love. And I think like every brand should do that. And of course, if you go on the website, there are organizations that they recommend or allow you to choose from to donate your 1%. So I love that. Pyre Moss. Yet again, another little bit of a higher end brand. So Prabal Gurung, Brother Vellies and Pyre Moss, a little bit higher end, but these are all brands that we can't ignore that we have to talk about. Pyre Moss is under the leadership of Kirby Jean Raymond. And they are also deeply committed to activism in all that they do. They have an Exist to Resist platform, which highlights and supports social justice organizations. They also collaborate with these organizations often to release limited edition products or even like ready to wear that you will see on the Pyre Moss runway. And a portion of the proceeds always go to support community efforts. Notable partnerships, I just want to read them off, that Pyre Moss has done are with the Marsha P. Johnson Institute, Rock the Vote, the Innocence Project. All of these things that the Pyre Moss brand does show Kirby and the brand as a whole's dedication to just promoting equality, the criminal justice reform, and civic engagement. So that is huge. Wild Thing, we have talked about so many times on this podcast. I think we talked about them in Queer-Owned Brands. Megan and I also wore almost head-to-toe Wild Thing for a shoot that we did, and we love the brand. They are queer and female founded. They're dedicated to so many things. They were founded in Portland, Oregon. in a studio apartment, in fact. And they've now, today, have donated over $1 million to more than 40 nonprofits, including Races, I Am That Girl, and the Joyful Heart Foundation. They also have a 1% pledge, which means that every order, 1% of the profits go to supporting community rights and well-being. And they also collaborate with certain organizations as well on some of their collections. So they're really cool. I would say that if your style leans a little bit more masculine, definitely check out Wild Fang. They have some really great pieces, great for androgynous dressing, which I personally love. Yeah, definitely check them out. You might have also heard of Telfar. I think pretty much everyone in the world has heard of Telfar, which is exactly the point of the brand. Telfar is a brand you've probably seen the bags. They have the signature tee. It is a brand that is for the people. Telfar was literally created to democratize fashion, to show that no matter who you are, you can have luxury. Luxury is yours. I think that's something that the fashion industry still struggles to acknowledge. At least like during Fashion Week, I feel that a lot. I feel like there's a lot of exclusivity. Telfar combats just that. I will say though that sometimes the bags are so exciting and the collaborations are so exciting that they sell out very quickly. But if you can get your hands on one, great. It was established in 2005 by Telfar Clemens. It's a unisex fashion brand. And like I said, they are rooted in inclusivity and accessibility and just gender fluidity, which are all things that are really important to me. They have strong commitment to social causes. In 2017, they actually collaborated with White Castle, which was a memorable collaboration. And they directed proceeds from that collection to fund bail for minors at Rikers Island. They also partnered with Black Lives Matter, which is another very memorable collaboration. There was a t-shirt that came out of that collaboration that you might have seen. And yeah, they actively support marginalized communities and promote social justice through everything that they do. Social Goods is another brand that is completely aligned with that. I would say like out of all the brands on this list, Social Goods probably wears their dedication to making the world a better place on their sleeve the most. Social Goods is a brand that's dedicated to activism. They offer products that support various social causes. They also collaborate with nonprofits. They've collaborated with Planned Parenthood, Everytown for Gun Safety, and the ERA Coalition. They also empower consumers to make a positive impact by through many different things, but specifically women's rights, gun violence prevention, and equality by just posting on their feed. If you go to their feed, if you follow them, which I think that you should, you will notice that like almost all the memes that are on there, anything that they post, it all goes to show that they want their consumers and their shoppers to be those who align with their values. So that's really great. Rowing Blazers is another one that honestly, before doing research for this podcast, didn't really know how much Rowing Blazers is doing behind the scenes. I know them for being preppy, for looking like, they nail the academia trend. They help you nail that trend. But they also integrate activism into their operations. They support various social causes. They've partnered and donated to organizations such as Row New York, Play Rugby USA, the NAACP, Stop AAP I Hate, Save the Children, the Robin Hood Foundation, Social Change Fund United, Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression, and the Bee Conservancy. They have partnered with so many different organizations, and they've done a lot of collaborations where they're putting out a collection that you can shop to help support these causes and these companies. And yeah, they just are all about community. So now knowing that, it makes me want to shop them even more. I really do like the aesthetic. I'm not much of like an preppy academia person, but sometimes I like to create outfits that lean that way. Or maybe like I take one piece and I make it like preppy and academia focused, and to have a blazer or a polo or anything from Rowing Blazers is cool in my book. And then finally, I do want to talk about Phenomenal. Similar to Social Goods, Phenomenal is more of like, I would say, community than just a fashion brand. It was founded by Mina Harris. They are a media company, like I said, more well-rounded. They elevate the stories of underrepresented women through various platforms, including entertainment, digital content, and brand partnerships. And of course, they have their clothing line. So if you go to their site, you'll see it as more of like a community. If you want to shop, you can go over and click the shop button. The company has collaborated with organizations such as Higher Heights, the United States of Women, and justice for migrant women, supporting initiatives that empower marginalized communities, number one. Through these efforts, they actively contribute to social change and they amplify diverse voices and minority voices. Another thing that's very important to me. You'll probably notice, like, you've definitely seen the t-shirts that say, like, I'm a phenomenal woman, whatever, phenomenal teacher. They've done so many of them. And so they're more of like a t-shirt brand. I wouldn't say that like they're all about an aesthetic necessarily that I would connect to the brand. But if you shop them, if you're going to shop a t-shirt, I would highly recommend you shop one from Phenomenal. Now I'm going to try tamales, which is Blair's favorite food, and talk a little bit about where I got them from. So let me go get the food. Hi, I'm back with my tamales from Azteca Taqueria, which is in Union City. I looked up on DoorDash where the best tamales are, and these were very highly rated. They did spell my name without an H, which I'm not loving, but oh, here she comes. Come on up. Oh my God, these look so good. So I got two different types of tamales. I got the chicken and I got the pork because I have to try both and I didn't know which one Blair preferred. Let me talk a little bit about Azteca Taqueria. So like I said, they're an authentic Mexican restaurant. They are known for serving some of the best dishes using the freshest and finest ingredients. The two main factors, and I'm reading from their website right now, of Azteca Taqueria restaurant are reasonable prices, which I can confirm that they are for both of these big tamales. I think I only spent $11. And their convenient location, which is great for takeout, which is great for delivery. They're on a lot of the delivery apps, which is awesome. And they also wrote this: at Azteca Taqueria restaurant, we have a wide range of menu items to choose from and have a friendly atmosphere and provide excellent service. We invite you to try our dishes and experience the immense taste and the finest innovations to make your experience memorable. So my experience better be fucking memorable because the cats are going to try tamales for the first time as well. I actually don't know if they're going to try, but that would be cool if they did. Let's put my bag in the picture because I think that that's cute. And no, let's not do the tinfoil. Let's unwrap the tamales. I'm really good at this, as you can see. Okay. I don't really know how to eat tamale. Like, are you supposed to eat a tamale with a fork and a knife? I'm not actually quite sure, but okay. The wrapper is stuck on the tamale. I love you, kid. Okay, this is the pork one because it's in red sauce. And then the chicken one is in a green sauce. And I think just based on looks, I'm gonna like the pork one more, but like I'll let you know in a sec. Kit. Also, just so you know, I don't know if I've ever acknowledged this either, but maybe on a different episode we'll talk about my accident with my thumb, but it disallows me to cut like a normal person. So that's why I cut very weird. Oh, that's good. Oh my God, it's really good. Wow. Maybe I'm gonna like the chicken one more. What do you think? She can probably tell it's chicken. I love that I can use my Lazy Susan to just kind of like spin it to the other side, but let me have some more of the chicken. Oh my God, delicious. Okay. Oh my God, this looks so delicious. Wow. Blair, this is my favorite thing that I've had on the podcast in a very long time, so I'm really glad you encouraged me to get tamale. What do I like more? I think I do like the pork one more. It is a little bit more flavorful, I would say. I think just like having the red sauce makes it a little bit more flavorful. Trish seems more interested in the pork as well. Honey, do you want to try a little bit? Come here. Mommy, give you a little bit. She's purring her ass off, but she's not quite interested in trying to eat it. You want to even take a lick? Trish is so funny. Before she licks things, she like really considers it. I got Kit down here deciding too. Come here. You got to come up here. Come up here. You got to do it for the audience. Oh, you see that slap, right? All right, if you guys aren't taking this bite, I am. Wow, I love this. I'm so glad that I now know about this place. Blair, thank you for encouraging me to get tamales. I have some sauce on my hands, but what else is new? Anyway, I just want to, again, thank my listeners for tuning in to this episode with Blair. She is just such a truly incredible person, and I am so glad and honored that she wanted to come onto this podcast and have this conversation with me. I hope to see you next time. I hope you check out Aje and all the brands that I'm wearing today. I love you. Have a good one. I'll be here with my tamales. Bye.